Then let me switch cameras. Here we go.
All right, cool.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
Fine, fine. Let me just raise this. You would not believe the setup I have to keep this camera. There you go. Nice.
Cool, cool.
Yeah, man.
All right, let me
Happy
just.
New Year, by the way.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year to you too.
Yeah, man.
Let me just invite some people to join.
Mm-mm.
Let's see here. There's some people joining already, so that's cool. Let me just add some more people.
But this is. I have a feeling this interview is going to go very well. Very, very well.
I wonder why you feel that.
Mark go burnt.
All right, let me see who is on. Let me see who is on. All right, I see Shia, Ray, Tula Art. Ooh, raw material short film is here. So raw material is a short film that I worked on last year.
Yeah.
Pretty cool story. And in fact, what you'd love is that the cinematographer, he's also a musician, so he did the score for
Nice.
the film. I don't know if it's him that's on or if it's his wife, but it's the raw materials account. And it's been winning quite a lot of awards. And it's in a Oscar qualifying film festival right now. I think it's a Pan African Film Festival.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Yeah. So that's definitely one of my highlights from last year working on that film. Very proud of
Nice.
it. Even
Were
though the
were you the
director,
were you the main animator?
no, it wasn't an animation. This was actual live action film.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Like, pretty cool story. Even though the director thinks it's boring, the writer and director thinks it's boring. I think creators are always critical of their work.
Nice. So
All right,
you're multi-hyping it, basically.
pretty much. Yeah. In fact, I was even on our local TV station this morning, doing some martial arts demonstrations and talking a little bit about fight choreography because that's something that I do as well. I'm very passionate about.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, so this Instagram live is partly for my podcast as well. But decided, hey, let's do it on IG Live so people can participate live. And
Yeah.
I am interviewing you. Well, we're not really interviewing, we're having a discussion. Um, Navid Lancaster from Trinidad. He's a musician, and why I'm talking to him is because he not only a traditional musician, but he works in the digital realm of music as well, and has done some scoring in films and games and that sort of thing. So just kind of want to talk to you a bit about that, and one of the questions I'm going to ask you, because I'm very interested in hearing your point of view, is like the state of music today, what you think about it, and all of that. I'm sure you have some views on that.
Oh, yeah.
But first, you introduce yourself so people can kind of learn more about who you are.
Yeah. Well, hi everybody, and Happy New Year. My name is Navid Lancaster. I am from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm a musician first and foremost. For the first 20 years of my career or so, I was a sound engineer, musician. I ran a band called Broken Mirrors for about 12 years, where we played rock, metal, speed metal. I know I don't look like it, but that's what my thing. And we did that for about 12 years, combining metal and stuff with local genres. In between that, I worked in various recording studios, basically composing calypsos, a little bit of soca, and of course recording artists and producing artists. So for at least part of that time, I worked in a recording studio, ran a recording studio for about 6 years in Port of Spain for a cultural promotional company. And then I left there and worked in the University of Trinidad and Tobago in the music technology department for about 4 years, maintaining their music lab there. And that aspect, we recorded like Panorama. As you may know, Carnival is coming up in Trinidad and Tobago. So the steel pan was a big thing, still is a big thing there. And we recorded all the competitions from the preliminaries to the finals, usually in 5.1 surround sound. So that was a first. So I did that for a few years while I was there. And then I left there and started for the past 11 years my film career, where it's not just film. I'm talking about scoring for film, multiple award-winning films, animations, video games, and mobile applications. I run a very small outfit called Lancaster Limited, and slowly but surely we've been gaining ground in the local, regional, and international spheres, where I'm fortunate to say that I do not just know people, but some people in the industry know me due to the quality of what I've been fortunate to be working on. So that is basically me in a nutshell.
Nice, nice, nice. And I mean, boy, you said some things that I didn't even know about you, like broken mirrors. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
You know, funny enough, Jamaica went through their phase where, like, you know, a lot of people started metal bands and stuff like that, you know. And even though it didn't have like a huge following, it had a very dedicated following. You know, I used to go to some of the parties and listen to the music, and while it wasn't a lot of people, very, very, very dedicated people. So talk to me. Let's get into that just a little bit. Broken Mirrors. What made you start that? Did you start the band, or you just a part of the band?
No, I actually started the band along with my co-founder Sheldon Manu. What happened is that, to make a long story short, in the beginning of my career, I started playing guitar at the age of 19 after my A-levels, and I went to Guyana, which was supposed to be for about 3 months, but I ended up spending 4 months there because I loved the country so much. It was on I'm a member of the Baha'i faith, and I went there on a Baha'i teaching project to learn what they've been doing in teaching the faith across there. And I ended up loving the country so much, I wrote back. I noticed I said wrote back because in those days, email was very new. You know, it took about 1992, you know what I mean? So I wrote.
That was pen pal time, you know?
Yeah. For the younger people in the audience, yeah, we actually used to write letters, go figure. And and they said, yeah, you could stay there for an extended period of time. So I ended up spending 4 months there. During that time, I met a guy named JB Eckel, who was a Baha'i, who ended up going, when he left Guyana, he's a Canadian, went and spent some time in a funk band called War, very famous band in the States, and then ended up playing with Carlos Santana, you know, so that's the kind of people who I met across there. And I came back and was very, very passionate about guitar playing. I mean, you know my email. My email is navid.hendricks. You know, I'm a Hendrix fan.
Yes.
And spent inordinate amount of hours playing guitar, learning guitar, and then ended up teaching guitar to a few people for a while. And one of the people who I started teaching guitar to was Sheldon Manu. And I'm a tinkerer. I'm a geek. I'm a nerd. A proud card-carrying nerd. And I like to tinker with stuff with gadgets. And I had a camera, an old camera, and while dismantling it, the lens split directly in half. Ooh. So my brother, he said, that sounds like the name of a band, Broken Mirrors. I was like, cool. So I ran it to Sheldon. He said, yeah, that sounds like a cool name. And we ended up forming a band. And that band lasted for about 12 years. Yeah.
12? Wow, that's good.
Yeah, we had been around for a while.
No, wow, that's nice. And like, you only played in Trinidad, or did you get any overseas?
No overseas. The rock circuit, or mainly the metal circuit, especially. Where it's underground. It's still underground. Right. Usually, the Mecca is in Chaguanas, You know, that's a place in Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so we went to, you know, they did the club scene once in a while. We did the high-end competition stuff. For a few years they had it, but I think they're starting it back again, called the Anchorage Pop Music Awards. So we entered that a few
Okay.
times.
Yeah.
But mainly, you know, you're playing in bars, playing a little casino gig where obviously we can't play metal there, and we have to change our format a little bit.
Mm.
But yeah, it's been mainly the club scene. So yeah,
Okay.
I did everything in the crowd, you know, the headband, the mosh pit, water death. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. All right, before we jump into the film stuff, I wanted to ask, you know, you said you had a studio for 6 years. You started a studio. What was that experience like? You know, and
Okay.
how comes, you
So
know, it only
I
lasted six
didn't,
years?
well, I didn't start the studio. I worked in studios.
Oh, I thought you had said
And
you worked in studios and then you started one.
oh no, those years I worked in studios and then started Lancaster Limited, which isn't actually a
Oh,
studio, you know.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But the stuff I pump out, yeah, it's, you know, I'm happy to say it's studio quality. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But in terms of these studios,
Mm,
I came up the old school way. I came just at the end of tape and the beginning of computer,
mm,
at least in Trinidad
right,
and Tobago.
right,
So, and I did it the old-fashioned way, meaning uh, I didn't start at the head. I was the gopher, you know, made the tea, made the coffee. It was so bad at that time for me because, you know, starting out as a broke musician. I slept on the studio floor, you know, because I couldn't afford the transport to go to
right,
and fro, you know.
right,
So yeah, I did that. I did it the hard way, you know, where you can't walk in and sit on the engineer's chair. You know,
right,
you can't just do it. You know, you have to work your way to that chair to sit on that
right,
chair. So
right,
I did. I started on analog. Um, Worked my way up, did some stuff on of course computers, and those computers at the time were Mac. They're still Macs, and I started my career as a secretary using Windows. When Windows 95 came out, I cried tears of joy because I
yeah.
started out on DOS. You know, yeah, I am that.
Wow, wow.
So
Mm,
so
mm,
yeah, so I started out on that, and from there worked my way up. When I started going to other studios, working in other studios, I was introduced to Windows software, you know. So I'm still a Windows fan, you know, I love my Windows. But yeah, if I have to go to Mac, because I had experience with that for years, working in various studios and then switching, yeah, I could do that. I just have to remember where certain things are, and then once you learn
right,
one,
right,
you
right.
usually, yeah, you usually like learn all.
Yeah. Oh, so Ray Edwards, he actually is probably the first person who officially taught me
Mm.
film. You know, before that I was just kind of learning on my own, but I did a course at UA and Ray Edwards taught me.
Yeah.
So he's a mentor for me. He's asking what year was all of this, you know, tape,
Oh, well,
and
the
Max switching doing this and
stuff with the marks, you're looking at what, 98, 99, 2000 kind of thing.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, that's when left the first studio. I was a gopher in. That studio it was 5.5. I think Logic. Oh my God, 5.5. That's to show how long ago that was. That's ancient, you
That's
know.
what 80s or early 90s.
So yeah, I think that was in the not 80s. 80s, I was still, you know, listening to music. I started playing in the 90s.
Okay.
When I was 19. So do the math. Um, but the studio stuff started like late 90s, mid to late 90s, and the early 2000s. So I started my career officially. Because what happened is that I started playing first, and then since I was into computers, it was a natural fit, meaning that you're playing live and you have a computer, okay, so the computer could record. So you just learn that program and start recording, you
Yeah,
know,
man.
and then, yeah. And then from there, years later, when I started getting into film, It was just a matter of attaching video to that. And of course, each of these things as an animation is the same thing. So basically, I know we'll be discussing this along this talk that we're having, but what are the similarities and the differences and these kind of things,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah, it's, to me, it's just a long line of connection. Everything to me is a logical connection, you know, but it all started with me picking up the guitar.
So, all right, so let's just jump right into it. How did you end up starting film? You know, I mean, what brought you to that side? Were you even thinking of going into film in the first place? You know.
Quite by accident. It was so not on my radar. But what happened is that I'm a person that likes to market myself like crazy. As I tell people, it's not an ego thing. It's not a look at me because I'm great kind of thing. It's not that. It's just that if you want to get above the noise, you have to tell people who you are. So, what? It's well, we're now into the new year, basically. So this will be 10 years now, I think. Yeah. I was in a club running the live sound, you know, setting up the system, monitoring the system. And I saw this guy come in with his camera, set up his tripod, a semi-big camera, set up the tripod, and his girlfriend at the time, well, fiance at the time, walked in as well. I did not know them at the time. I just saw them set up their camera. So me and my coach self walk across there and said, "Hi, my name is Navid." And I had this little homemade card, which I had, and I gave it to him. And the guy said, "Hi, my name is Stephen Taylor." Keep that name in mind, Stephen Taylor. And I asked him what he does. He says, you know, he does film. I mean, obviously he has a camera and he films events. A few months later, I got a call from him, and he said that, you know, he's doing his school film, his final film for UE, and he wanted to know if I could do the score for it. I'm like, yeah, let me do score, because in my mind, as I said, it was like a logical thing. Where I do music all the time. During that time, of course, by the time Stephen spoke to me, I have already been doing music, recording artists, that kind of thing. So adding video to me just made sense. So I ended up doing the film, scoring the film for him, and that film ended up winning in 2012 the People's Choice at the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. That film, by the way, is called Buck the Man Spirit. You know, Buck the Man Spirit. It's a folklore film dealing with bucks. Yeah.
Ray wants to know, was it film or video?
Oh, film, an actual short film. Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing that he means if it was shot with a camera that uses, you know, actual film reels, or if it was digital.
I got it digitally, you know, so I assume, of course, it was a digital camera he used, you know, but the NUE, what the film program, I assume, because I'm not part of that program,
right? Okay.
But I assume they get trained in both, you know, as far as I could tell. But I got it as actual digital film, digitized film, you know. I put it in my system, found out what the frame rate was, and then, of course, scored the film to suit, you know, what you wanted. Yeah.
All right. So that was the start of this, you know,
that was
this career in filmmaking. So one of the things I want to know is, the first time you're scoring a film, was there any nervousness, any apprehension? Was there anything that you went, okay, this is different? You know, what was the approach? Or did you just look at the scene and go, okay, yeah, I know what I'm going to do, and you just do it and give it to them, and, you know, they love it?
Yes and no. Yes and no, because I had my ideas, obviously, but I quickly learned, and this is something that all composers or directors that are watching will know or have to know. One is that it is not my film or animation, it's the director's. My job is to fulfill the vision of the director. And so before I even scored anything, I had with Stephen what is called a spotting session, where we sat down, we watched the film. I actually remember I went to him where he lived at the time. and we watched the film and we discussed what the feel he wanted for the scene, and more importantly, where he wanted music, and most importantly, on top of all that, where the music not supposed to be. So it's not to say that I'm scoring everything from top to bottom, you
Right.
know.
Right.
And yeah, and I scored it. He liked it. In fact, if I remember clearly, for that film, because that was the first time we ever had a working relationship, I don't even think he gave me any notes, really, you know, about the
Lucky.
things to change. He just
Lucky.
liked what I did out of the box, and bada boom, bada bing. The film. In fact, the film was so popular. During the film festival, we had to have extra screenings of the film,
Mhm.
and the film actually made the news.
Is
You
it
know,
is it available online
I
or?
think it's still available online.
Mm.
And if it's not, you can see the sensation that it created. I think it's on Stephen Taylor's YouTube. You'll see all these tidbits. I don't think the film may be in full online. I'm not so sure.
I'm gonna look for it.
Obviously,
Buck the Monster.
yeah. I
Okay.
know I have my own personal copy, but I can't give that out just like that.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
but
of course, of
yeah,
course. So what software
but
did you use at the time?
all software. Oh my
Yeah.
God, software which I would not recommend anybody use. I was so um, new in film scoring at
Yeah.
the time that when I switched, I doing my work, like studio work, when I worked in various recording studios, I worked with Logic and I worked with Pro Tools, early versions of those.
Oh, okay, okay.
Programs. But when I switched to PC, because obviously I didn't use my work stuff for it, I had Ableton Live, and early versions of Ableton Live is
Okay.
great for
Never
certain
heard of that
things.
one.
Oh, well, for if you were a DJ, or if there are any DJs watching, or remixers, they definitely know Ableton Live. And it's great for those things. Not great for scoring a film. But that was the only software I had at the time. So I made do and really pushed it to that version. I can't even remember the version it was. It's a very early version because I mean this is 2012,
Yeah.
right? Um, but I pushed it to what it could do, and it worked. Afterwards, of course, I got software that's more compatible to what I'm used to and what film scoring can be. You
So,
know.
question, you mentioned that but the Man Spirit was a UA short film project. So this was
It
not a
was
paid. It was not a paid project. Then. It was just a
um no, it was not a paid project.
okay.
Yeah, it
But
was his thesis film.
having won the awards, did it lead to paid projects? And what was the next project
Uh,
down the line? How soon did you get the
it
next
didn't lead
project?
to paid project initially, but it did lead to more visibility. So the second film, which I did year after, was called Jab in the Dark, which is
Okay.
when that film actually won again for best short at the 2013 film festival.
Mhm.
So remember I was talking about marketing.
Yeah.
So what I did, I said, okay, these films, they're short films, and the nice thing about this, which is a side note, is that it's one thing to do a film with a director and a producer, but it's another thing to build relationships. So while they were growing, I was also growing, right? And
Hmm.
that's a very important thing. And animation is the same thing. You have to build relationships. So yes, these two films initially was not paid, but the nice thing is they won. So what I did,
Right.
I got
Right.
a leverage, and I went to newspapers, and I literally went to newspapers and did other interviews and told people, and I quote, if you want your film to win an award, it has to pass through my hands. That's what I said, verbatim. Because I have a track
Them,
record. Two films
them
and both films
bored,
won.
sir. Them
Yeah,
bored.
yeah. Those are the exact words I said in the
Mm.
press. And you could go to my website and you can see it. I literally said those things. Uh,
And
I
then
did not care.
after that, a flood of people came in, right?
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to market myself as a premier film composer. And I mean, I have a budding track record of winning films, so I said that, and I made this bold claim. You know, I did not care who is offended. You know, I did not care.
No, I mean, well, you have the track record, right? So until it's proven wrong, right?
2 films, 2 years, 2 films, and those films won awards. You know, I can't go wrong.
So, all right, let me ask you now, animation. How did that come into play? Because how I think I've seen your name on Facebook from a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know, in animation groups and such like that. And I knew you're a musician, but I hadn't really seen your work until I started seeing you do like I don't know if it was competitions or if you were just doing it for marketing yourself's sake. But I saw where you like took a scene and you redid a score to the scene.
Yeah.
Like, you know, was that how you got introduced to animation, or were you introduced to animation before and then that just became something you did for extra marketing?
I got introduced to animation before. I actually did some work with Full Circle Animation, who you might know from Trinidad and Tobago.
Full Circle, yeah.
Yeah. So when they have stuff back in the day, the PSAs, the public service announcements, and a few other things. I did music for those, and I started doing sound design for some of them as well. Which, as I said, to me, it's logical because it's sound and music. So, and I mean, it's digitized. It's 7D film. I check the frame rate. I look at the scene, decide what music and the feel they're looking for the client, and I do it. So I started doing that for a little bit. The stuff that you saw with the rescores, that came about a few years ago from a guy called Brian Waters. He has this company called the Q-Tube, CUETUBE, and it's back to relationships. I formed he's actually from, if I'm not mistaken, he's from not from Ukraine, even though he's done some stuff there. I think it's Poland. I have to check, but he does stuff between that country and UK, and he does for a few years he was teaching in Poland, but since I am part of various composer groups and so forth, he introduced himself in one of those groups. I think it's a group run by Spitfire Audio, which is a company that creates software, sample software for composers. And he said he was starting this group called the Q-Tube to give composers clips of film and animation so they could practice on. And I saw him, and I was like, this is an opportunity. So I contacted him, and we have become friends pretty quickly. So much so that I have been part of 2 of his composer workshops, where I was the only person from the Caribbean and the only Black person on it, because everybody else was from Europe or the States. And we have another one coming up early this year, which I can't say. You'll see it soon enough. Dealing with a particular film trailer. But it's still back to relationships. He put out these clips and he also has competitions as well with animation. And so what I did, of course, I composed on these animations and put it out there. I didn't win those competitions, unfortunately, but I have now material where if somebody asks, let me hear your ideas on animation, on animated scene. I have not just 1 or 2, I have a few of them.
Right.
So it's part of my resume, part of my reel, you know. So he has been doing a lot in terms of that as well, giving composers material, because that is actually a need for composers, that they do not have material to work with.
I'm glad you told me this because, you know, as you know, my brother is a musician and he's been looking for ways to market himself. And I was saying to him, you know, he should get into film scoring and scoring for games. but you know, he doesn't have any way to really, you know, just magically get those jobs to score for them. He scored
Yeah,
for a few, you know, PSA commercials for me,
right.
back in the day. But you know, a website like this, YouTube, would really, really benefit him in terms of scoring something that is of a higher cinematic quality. You know,
That's right.
that's pretty
That's right.
cool.
The Q2 has done a lot. It has, I think, and I'm pretty sure I'm wrong, right, to quote the number, but I think it has over, I think 8,000 composers worldwide now, I think,
Wow,
or something like that.
8,000.
Yeah, it's growing, and it's been recognized by a lot of the software and sample companies. He has created, he saw a niche and has created something of value. So a lot
Yeah,
of
it
composers,
definitely sounds valuable.
filmmakers, and sound designers are going towards his website and his Patreon and the materials. And he's expanding, by the way. He put out something recently that he's expanding.
Yeah, man.
Um,
And I mean, it's great
so
because
I'm really happy for him. Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's
so
great
so your
because
brother could definitely look into that.
yeah, no, I'll definitely tell him because especially the fact that you know he started his website, so those clips are going to be free of copyright issues and that
That's
sort of
right.
thing. So I'll tell my brother about it because yeah,
Yeah.
he wants to compose music for that sort of thing. All right. So you've been in film and animation, and you say you've been doing that for like 10 years. Now, do you know like how much do you enjoy it, and how much what portion of your work is it? And if it's not a lot, what portion of your work would you love for composing to be, or do you prefer
Um,
standard playing in a band kind of
I,
vibe?
I for the band part, to me, it's more of a been there, done that.
Ah,
A band takes a lot of work. Um, I mean, the energy at my age right now, I rather concentrate on something else than band. I don't mind composing for a band, but to get out there, go to the practices, do the gigs, pack up equipment, you know, not that I've been there, done that. So I mean, I set my guitars and stuff like that, which of course I use for my own personal projects. Side note, I'm working on putting out 3 albums this year.
mm.
So definitely my equipment is going to be used along with the software that I'm fortunate to have.
So you sing as well?
I used to, but
In the
let
rock
somebody
band?
else do it. Yeah, yeah. Let younger, stronger voices do that.
Okay,
So,
okay. Do
but
you want to
yeah,
know
I,
the
I,
pro?
I
Oh,
say it?
continue.
Yeah.
No, continue,
Um,
continue.
but I would rather now concentrate my energies. I love being in studios. I'm a studio rat. I love being in recording studios. So I like to be there anytime I get a chance to and spend enough time tweaking the gear, that kind of thing. That's my, and the advantage, and for me at least the advantage of what I have now is that I could roll out of bed 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, put
Yeah.
something there, save it, or even record a voice note on my phone, which I have done on numerous occasions, and then develop the idea, you know. Or even now, it has a software called MuseScore, MuseSore, which is an open source software
Mm.
music notation program, which I've been using since version 2. Version 4 has now come out and it's fantastic. And I've started working with this new version on some material. I actually almost finished one right now. So it has everything from music notation and orchestrated sample scores. Not scores, sample instruments for the orchestra. So I'd
Wow.
rather be home, doing that and then have email or travel, send that out as a file and let somebody else, you know, develop it or record it.
Okay, okay. Um, is there a difference between, the process of composing for animation versus film?
Uh, for me, no, except for a couple things. As far as I could from my past experience, a film, live action film, is not actually set until you see it on the screen. Because since everything is so digitized, a director could, at the very last minute, say, okay, I want something cut or edited or lengthened, right? And add a piece of a live action in it, which of course will affect the timings of the score
Right,
and the sound and
right.
everything like that. So since everything is digitized, and everything is not locked, that's the term they use. It's not a locked film.
Yeah,
You can be up to the day of release, still editing and writing music for it. For animation, as far as I could tell, from what I have been through so far, because I'm pretty sure other people and other filmmakers and or scores and for animation may have a different experience.
right.
Once I get everything as is, right? And then I score from the reel to reel to reel, digital reel, by the way, not actual,
Yeah,
analog
yeah,
reel.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because animation takes so long to make, so you can't exactly chop stuff at the last minute and then next day send it out,
Right.
So and also for me, I like to get into the process early. I know film scoring is basically a post-production process where we're one of the last people to have their hands on the film or animation before it goes out the door to the public.
Right.
But I have come to the point where, at least with the directors I have worked with, that I will get the script early or the
Yeah,
or the animatic
yeah,
early.
I've heard other musicians say that,
Yeah,
involve us in the process as early as possible,
that's right.
the script stage, because reading the story will help you to kind of figure out the type of vibe and emotion you want to put in the music,
That's right.
and you have more time to build it out than to
Correct.
wait till it's finished and now they need it in 3 weeks or whatever the case is. Um, you
It
know,
cuts down the amount of notes that
mhm.
you get from the director. You know.
Good point.
Yeah,
Good point. And as creatives, we all know we don't like too much notes because after a while,
that's right. That's right. But even then, even if we get a lot of notes, it's still not ours. If we're working on
right?
our own album, yeah, we
Yeah,
have carte
yeah,
blanche to do what we want. But it's the director's vision, and,
yeah, man.
and yeah, and we're there to serve the story. So
Yeah.
if a person, and luckily that didn't happen to me.
Mm,
I mean, I've had, for want of a better word, in the growing pains of the director-composer relationship, we've had some lively discussions, for want of a better word, not arguments, just lively discussions
lively
of
discussion.
how things, yeah, of how things, because we still have good relationships now, and we
Yeah,
still work. But it's just a matter of understanding different points of view and the processes of getting the
right.
team together to have it as a functioning, working, fluid unit to
Mm.
get the story out the door, and into the public.
You do sound effects as well?
Yeah,
Volume?
I do sound design. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Sound effects must be very different from music because I mean, yeah, you've been doing music all your life, and the transition was easy when it came to film and animation because
Yeah.
it's still music. But sound effects now, what was your first sound effects gig, and what was your preparation for that? Were you nervous at that
Um,
point?
Funny enough, I can't remember the first one. Uh, I remember the first one for the public, which was a music video, which I actually wrote not one, not two, but three blogs on it.
Mm,
Called what was it? I think it was Lockdown. I think it was after check because it's been a few years. But it's a music video, and I was in charge of the first 40 seconds of it. Well, that's all I had, 40 seconds, and I had to create the whole environment for that music video. You set the tone. Actually, no, I actually did a video before that. Actually, um, it was a video with Destra. took artist
Oh,
Destra,
so yeah, yeah.
yeah, and another guy. I can't. The name forgets me. Has left me because it's been a while. But I actually wrote a blog on that too. I have to check back my blogs. It's been a few years. But
What's your blog? What's your
uh,
blog for those?
oh, it's actually on my website, Lancast Limited,
Okay.
LANCASTLTD.com, and just
I
click the
understand.
blog section. All right, and you'll see the blogs there. Just hit the blogs and you see it.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
And that one, the protagonist, the lead singer, he had to go through this video game, an arcade video game, right? And then from there, they had these pillars of light on either side. So I had to put the sound design for each of those lights, those bars of light. And it's a nice thing to have a wide range of influences. I had this guy from the 70s to early 80s who was very famous at the time, a musician called Jean-Michel Jarre, right? He had this thing like called like a laser harp or something like that, where he had these bars of light. I actually saw it in the late 80s, right? Early 90s. This show he had in Paris or something. And every time he touched the light, the bar, it made a sound. So I remember that and I incorporated that in the music video. Yeah?
That's interesting. Like I can picture it in my head, but I've never seen that before.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like a harp, but they're just bars of light, and your fingers
That's right.
strum it the same way you would strum a harp. Because when your
That's right.
fingers
And
move
that's
the
what
light,
that's what the electrician did. You know, he strummed it.
wow,
So I had to time each one
I've never
properly,
seen that.
you know. And of course everything from this is like one of the discussions there, and the director by the way was Steve Taylor. This is one of the discussions we have. How the sound is supposed to sound through an arcade glass. Now I played arcades back in the day. Those glasses are not thin, those are thick glasses.
Yeah.
So the sound from the outside, something hitting it from the outside, will sound different from a sound hitting from the inside. You know? So those are the kind of things as a sound designer you have to keep in mind. You know? That the sound yeah.
So all right, you're telling me from a what do you call it? A metaphysical level, but like in terms of sound effects, you're watching a scene, you see somebody shuffling paper, you see somebody playing this arcade game, you see somebody putting on clothes. How do you go about finding the sounds or figuring out how to create the sounds? Because my guess would be that you probably didn't have access to a digital library of sound. So, you know, how you work that out. Do you go and take some clothes and, you know, flap it in front of a mic? How you do that?
Actually, both. One is I have a battery of sounds, like a few gigs. And a lot of them you can get for free. It has this company called Sonisys, who I once I did communicate to the guy. I think it's SONNISS. I think that's the correct spelling of it, Sonisys.com. And every year or so, he puts out a few gigs of sound design assets.
Free?
Very free.
Wow.
All royalty free. Because he's a sound design company. He has loads of gigs. So every year or so he puts out that. And you take it. You know, it's absolutely free. That's one. You're talking about roughing clothes. I actually did that for a sound design competition where this animated ninja was moving his clothes and spewing out fire. So when he's moving his clothes, I had my microphones and stuff like that. Took these clothes, shook it to create that. You know, and by the way, that's a form of sound design called Foley, where you watch the animation or the live action, and you create the sound for that particular effect. So in this particular case, it was the clothes, right? And then I use fireballs and stuff like that, and different fire explosions from that library that I got from Sonisys. And of course, I manipulated them using frame accuracy, so it lands at the right time on the animation, and EQs and panning, where you take the sound and move it from left to right, that kind of thing, and use all these various processes
Right.
to create the illusion that the sound is coming from where it's supposed to sound. And by the way, that's just one aspect of sound design, because you can use sound design to help to direct the viewer to a certain aspect of so.
And then that too,
Yeah.
you mentioned direct, like, do you ask the director, are you using surround sound, and then decide, okay, what section of the room is this sound coming from, and then only make sure the sound happens on that channel, all of that sort of thing, or is it just, mono
Usually
scope?
the director won't get that technical, saying I want to come from that speaker at that time. But it does help if it's 5.1, using an immersive environment. Now I haven't done much 5.1 yet, but everything right now is going towards that, including podcasts, right? Because including podcasts, everything is going to be immersive now.
As in story-based podcast.
Yeah. Podcasts are now going into immersive.
Right.
That's the trend now. It was mono, stereo, 5.1, and now it's going to be more Atmos, that kind of thing. So everything now is going.
Interesting.
So my setup isn't 5.1, but of course it pays to know people who know you and to build relationships. So of course I know people who do that, including the same people when I was back in the day recording Panorama in 5.1 in university. I have people from there who know how to do it, So for a few upcoming projects, which unfortunately, as you know, I can't say, we will be looking at recording in 5.1, so it can be mixed in 5.1, and of course you could melt it down to stereo, for a stereo environment.
Right.
So
right.
That's the way the world is going. 5.1.
All right, let me ask you this now. You live in Trinidad now, right?
Yeah.
You don't live in America or Canada or Europe or whatever.
America right now for me would be a nice place to visit, but not to stay.
Not to stay.
Not to stay. So and yes, I do know of a few people there. Most of them and that's another I don't say trick, because I don't like things like tricks and hacks. I don't like saying those words. But it's a marketing asset. I know people from the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago and other places, who live in the States, who make their living there, and who are doing very well there, right? So my thing is to form relationships with them, and it's very easy for two reasons. One, for example, the ones who I know who are Trini born, I form relationships with them, and I don't have to do much in terms of introduction. They're Trini, I'm Trini. So the icebreaker is because we have a similar cultural roadmap that we all came from, right? And then usually, since they're part of the diaspora, they like to help people that are living in the country of their origin. Once you don't go cap in hand begging for work, obviously you have to add value.
Right.
Right? Because the people who I know, it has to be that. It has to be like that, because I'm sure they have a ton of people that go there cap in hand, saying, help me out. But that doesn't work. You form relationships, so you have to build your own value, make your own, and then
I was gonna ask you, like, how comes you haven't moved from Trinidad? Why stay in Trinidad? Because I know you're well respected internationally, and most people, it's like once you get is to go abroad. So why stay in Trinidad? And do you think you're still as successful as you want to be from Trinidad? Do you think moving would help you to be more successful? And is the aim to stay in Trinidad and be successful from Trinidad?
I would prefer for me to do both. To spend time outside, spend time here, spend time outside, spend time here. I mean, I love my country, but just like most Caribbean countries, as far as I know, we have certain
You get
limitations and
protected.
restrictions.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, but we have certain particularities.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Um, and the thing about it is that niche market wise, it's
Mm-hmm.
much easier to build a noise here than to go
True.
over there
True.
at the start.
That
You
that
know,
is
so
true.
yeah.
That.
So for example,
Mhm.
I'm in Clubhouse, right? And certain clubhouses and on Clubhouse. And I was speaking quite recently to an immigration officer, United Immigration Officer. And she told me a few certain things about the visa requirements, that kind of thing. And yeah, I basically tick all the boxes, including I'm recognized by the state here through the Ministry of
Okay.
Art. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's an asset. I've been spoken about, featured in various newspapers, podcasts, that kind of thing locally here. So and this is some of the requirements that they like to see. That in order to
Mm.
come here to take up space. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, so it's much better to create the buzz here.
Right.
And,
Right.
and the reason why I am known outside and I've done some projects internationally as well is because I made the noise here first. You know?
That's a good point. That's a good
Yeah.
point. I mean, my boss, one of my old bosses, I remember he's an American resident, and he would travel abroad very often and come back to
Right.
Jamaica. And I remember asking him, why come back to Jamaica? Why not stay overseas? You're a resident and so on. And he's like, look,
Yeah.
he said, in America, I'm a second class citizen. In Jamaica, I'm a first class citizen.
Mm.
He just has more clout here,
Yeah.
and while yeah, maybe he could be making more money there, he would be in a situation that he wouldn't necessarily like to be in.
Mm.
Here he had a lot more flexibility.
Yeah.
He had a lot more. Um, he just had a lot more say, and that was
That's
more
right.
important to him. So yeah, I get it. I definitely get it. Okay.
Not only that, it's also a case of same thing I talk about with the niche market.
Mhm.
Over many states, for example, composers are dime a dozen. You have thousands of film composers coming from. First thing first, I never went to a film composing school, right?
Right.
It has people over there who come from film composing schools, and they keep pumping them out, thousands of them every year,
Right.
right? You have a saturated film industry with composers, right? And most of those composers, and I see them on the forums. Some of them are public composer forums, some of them are private composer forums, and all of them are asking the same thing: How would I get work? How would I get work? And then they keep bothering, and even with some of the private ones that I'm fortunate to be in, because they scan all your stuff before they let you in, right? One of the rules is do not bother the established film composers. So, for example, I'm in a film composer with Hans Zimmer on it, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer does make his comments and stuff like that. You cannot private message him. You cannot. There are certain things that you cannot do. You cannot go on and give and say, hire me for a job. That will not work in the real world. You know,
Right.
and thousands of film composers make that mistake. So what I do, I make sure that I create enough buzz here. And
Right.
I don't know if you've seen it. It's not like I'm tooting my own horn because I kept it quiet for a while and then put it out. But you may have seen it. If you scroll through my stuff, I put out a picture of a couple of years ago with Hans Zimmer and John Williams, who's my favorite composer. And
Ooh,
he
John Williams.
asked me to, yeah, and he asked me to be tagged, asked me to tag him on it. And I freaked.
Oh, nice.
I freaked out. Yeah. So go to
I can imagine.
it might be easy to find on my Instagram. Go to my Instagram and just scroll through. You'd see it. And I
I
freaked.
would.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
the first thing I did,
and just for those people who don't, I mean, most people might know Hans Zimmer because
yeah,
he composes quite a lot of stuff, even
yeah,
today. But John Williams, well, from my memory, John Williams is like
yeah,
Superman. What else?
E.T., Star Wars,
E.T., Star Wars,
yeah, yeah.
all those
Jaws.
great movies from the 80s.
Right.
You know?
And they're now actually, he and Spielberg are now putting out a new film that just came out. So that's coming out pretty soon if it's not out already. And they just celebrated, by the way, their 50-year working relationship. John
50.
Williams and
Wow.
Steven Spielberg. Yeah.
Okay.
He also did
Well,
Schindler's
yes,
List as
that's
well. Yeah.
true. Because Jaws
Yeah.
was from the 70s. So yeah, that
Yeah.
is true. 50 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
50
Wow.
years. As I said in the beginning, it's always down to relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Skill sets to me are a dime a dozen. You can learn that stuff off
Right.
of YouTube. Yeah.
And and
It's
and and let's give a
yeah.
early tip, right? What would you say are the top three things that musicians, coming up today need to do to market themselves or to get to that level where they are finding work and getting work regularly?
first things first. Your ego don't mean crap. Your
Your
skills
ego
don't
don't mean
mean
crap.
nothing because it has a hungry little 14-year-old who will mash you up musically.
Mhm.
That's the first thing. Once they get over that, things get a lot easier.
All right. That's a good point because yeah, I know enough people say, yo man, we are the baddest thing. No, nobody never hear music like this yet. I hear that so often. I hear that with film, I hear that with animation. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good point. So ego don't
yeah.
mean crap. What
You,
else?
you, you could be slaving on your guitar, slaving on your animation, slaving on everything for years. And then some little, snotty nosed 13-year-old put something up and hit viral and hit 12 million, 15 million people watching it, you
Hmm.
know? And next thing you know, they get in the work, you know? That's the reality we're living in. Have internet will travel,
Right,
you know?
right, right.
So now, as a one of my co-workers in UTT, his name is Martin Raymond, a very, very famous music producer and sound engineer. His name is Martin Mice Raymond. That's his nickname, Mice. Or if you're hearing noise, I think there's still the water pump on. So give me a second. You hearing that noise?
Mm, no, I'm not
Okay.
hearing anything.
All right. So he said something very interesting many years ago when he was teaching
Oh,
a
by the
class.
way, sorry to interrupt you, but just letting
Martin
you know,
Raymond.
you see the same music video that you saw me in the other day.
Say again?
Did I share a music video with you? China Kiki, and I'm in it doing some Kung Fu Master stuff.
I think so, but that was a while ago.
No, man, it would have been recently. I'll share with you again, but
Okay.
I'll just let you
You
know
can-
that
yeah,
the
yeah.
artist China Kiki is in the
Yeah.
chat
He
listening.
said something very interesting. He said
Mhm.
a musician today is not competing with his peer group, or even the
Right,
industry today. He's
right,
competing with over 100 years of recorded music. Because recorded music, recorded for mass consumption, has
right.
has been yeah has been around for about 100
Um,
years. The phonograph, record player,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you're competing with that. Much less, you remember, you're competing with what recorded music, meaning that your standard,
I
at
see.
least for the westernized notes, Western European music, classical music, which is over what 300 years
Right,
or so.
right, right,
So you're
right,
competing against that, and then
right.
remember we also have all this indigenous music from Africa, China, India, and all these indigenous tribes.
I get
So you
you.
have all that, which has been passed on from generation to generation. You are not special.
Right,
That's what you're competing against. So what you have to do, because remember we at the beginning of this question was talking about relationship, is a
right.
few things. One, get a website. That's the first thing. Get a website, get
Get
a
up.
website, get a website. And it's not hard to do because you have free websites. You have
Right.
wix.com, wix.com, you have squarespace.com, right? You can start with those because social media, you cannot control social media.
No.
look at Twitter. Twitter is going on the tubes right now, right?
Yeah.
We are not the owners of that.
Right.
That we're not owners of Instagram, which we're
Exactly.
using right now. We cannot change the format. We cannot change the color. We cannot do anything. We do not own these. What you can control is a website, your website, where you can put things on it and control your messages. And one of the first things people ask is, do you have a website?
Yeah.
You know, instead of just showing social media links, you know, which in a sense is kind of bad for a prospective person. So a website and attach your media links to it, your social media links to it. That's the
And I
first
mean,
thing.
and that's a simple one because I mean, even with animators, I have a lot of students who they've been drawing and drawing and animating. And when I say to them, you know, they might say to me, hey, they want a job. And I say, well, send me a portfolio. And I'm getting these cell phone pictures of a
Yeah,
picture. And I'm like, what happened to the website? Can you just send me a link? And then they send me an Instagram, and then the Instagram is private. And then I have to say,
yeah,
and I'm like, you know, if you send this to somebody, nobody's going to take the
that's
time
right.
to, you know, and then on top of it, you don't have a website. I'm not sure if I'm to take you seriously or if you're just a hobbyist, you know. So yeah, the website thing is definitely very
That's
important. Have a
right.
website, and I mean, I think that should go for everybody, whether you're a musician, an animator, an actor, you know, whatever the case is, you know, you should have a website because it's the one place that people can go to see everything about you. With your Instagram, it's images and video. You don't get a chance to really write your bio unless you're gonna put up a picture of your
That's
bio.
right.
Which how many scrolls do I have to do to get to that bio? You know? And if
You
there's an
understand?
article that's released about you, you know, how many scrolls till I see the picture, or
Mm,
do I have to go and
mm,
click on your bio and go through, you know,
mm.
all kind of things. So yeah, website
Yeah.
definitely sounds like a good point.
And the advantage of our website as well, I mean, you're seeing it, is the you can write blogs.
Yeah,
So
man.
once in a while, I write a blog on the behind the scenes process of how I created a certain asset for a client. And the advantage of that is that you'll be seen as an expert in that field.
Right.
Yeah, because a lot of people obviously they see the end product, but they do not know the amount of hard work, grief, thought process, and all these things that go behind making what you're seeing on the screen, whether it's animation, music, sound design, or a combination of all three. You
Right.
know,
So,
these things these things take work, and yes, it's fun, but it's work and it's
mm,
hard work. Yeah,
definitely.
it takes a. I mean, you're an animator. You well know the amount of hours
Mm,
you have to put in to get at least 10 seconds of
yep.
frame. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
so people have to understand this. I remember giving a lecture to a class. A school had invited me to give a lecture to a class, and I told them, you know, for music, they see all the glamour on the stage, they see all the lights and stuff like that, and they get attracted to it thinking it's easy. But they're not seeing behind the back, backstage, all the infighting, all the backbiting, all the
Right.
backstabbing, or all the ego mongering that you have to wade through, to even get to even be a guest artist. Not even the main headliner, to be a guest artist
Right.
on. Another thing that people have to know is about the business, right? It's not called show art. It's not for a reason. It's called show business for a reason. It's
Right.
not called animation art. It's not called music art. It's called the animation business. It's called music business for a reason. It's a business. Yes, it's great and it's creative, which is cute, but you have to eat.
Right.
So yeah, lights have to be on, right? So yeah, these are the kind of things that people have to realize what's going on. And then you have the added flavor of living in a Caribbean country where arts aren't as appreciated. And saying it bold, arts aren't as appreciated as a doctor or a lawyer.
You know, you can see it in the schools. I don't know about Trinidad, but here
Oh,
We can go to a school and
Oh,
there's no art
so that
program.
happens in spades. I don't know about you, but when I first started out, uh, I have been asked by well-meaning friends and a few enemies, um, are you sure? Are you sure this is what you want to do? You sure you don't want to do this as a hobby? You sure you want to do this as a second job?
I got that
With the
too. I
beginning,
got that
yeah,
too.
you got that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I got it so bad that I had to hide the fact that I was doing it so that I didn't have to
Wow,
hear the negative comments, you know, because
wow.
when I was just like, man, I really, really want to get into this film business. And,
Mm-hmm.
every people were like, maybe you should go and do your master's in IT and become a manager and blah, 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 blah. And I just literally had to say to them, like, when I was going on a film shoot,
Yeah.
especially when working for free, I would just say to them, oh, work calls me in on the weekend, so I'm going to go to work. And they were fine with that. If I said I was going to go on a film
Mm-hmm.
set, they'd be like, you sure you want to waste your time with that? How much money is
Mm-hmm.
that paying you? But I just said, you know what, I'm going to work, and nobody argued with that. And then, when they see things happening now, they go, wow, but
That's
yeah.
right. All of a sudden your phone buzzing and they beat their chest saying, I know that fella, blah, blah, blah.
Let me tell you,
Yeah.
I had a friend who was trying to dissuade me from it. And then when he saw that I was doing well at it, he wanted me to teach him film. I was like, interesting.
You see? You see? That's what has happened.
Mhm.
That's what has always happened. As I was telling a friend of mine, uh, a well-known person, going through this thing too, I tell him, they give me this grief, and then when he mark bus and they making success, and you see they start to pull you, get your phone and make it go dark. Let it go to voicemail. Dark that phone. You know, it's very true what they say about, if they, but then who they, well, one is from Jamaica with Bob Marley, who the cap fit, let them wear it. You know what I
Yep,
mean? To,
yep,
to corner foul. He made
yeah,
success. All of a sudden, people all of a sudden, supporters brought out of nowhere. People who were blanking are right through.
yep,
All of a sudden, they want to be your best friend.
yep.
That occurred in my life. I reached an age where I darken phone. And I've done that a few times. I've cut people off. And I do not
Mhm.
care. Because where were you when I was going through this stuff? And I mean, as an artist,
Right.
we are still going through stuff, right?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
that it's a lot easier now because we have a little leverage because we have some credentials. But at the same time, you have to know where you stand with people
Right,
and draw a
right.
line. You know,
Yeah.
so people have been calling me a lot. I'll give an example. In animation, uh, I have had my company besmirched in a publication. They took my ad, changed the words, right, and put it on a publication. The person has not apologized yet. I think
Wow.
it's, I have all the screenshots,
Wow.
but the lovely thing is she seems to succeeding right through, you
Mm.
know. And to me that's like fuel because you want to crab and barrel, if you want to put me down, well, okay, good. As I told that person when that happened to me, and this is the other side of me popping up, so excuse me for the face change and the tone change. I told straight, I said, watch, I am not the best thing to slice bread. I am the bakery. I am the bakery. Don't play with me. I'm gonna match you up with success. You know?
I love that.
I don't play.
Love that.
Yeah, I don't play that.
Wait, keep
So
talking. I'm stepping off camera for a moment. Keep
no
talking.
problem. So that is what happens. Once you once you start to make headway and make success, people will start to pull you down. And it's a sad thing, but that's the reality. And if you don't have the wherewithal to do it out of spite, just to follow your dream, because nobody is going to fulfill your dream for you. Yeah, you
So,
just gotta keep pushing.
question.
Yeah.
So earlier we were saying that, we're going to talk about like the
Oh,
stage.
by the way, your camera just went to your logo.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
don't worry about that. Don't worry
Okay.
about that. Just,
Cool. No problem.
yeah, what happened is my battery is dying, so I'm trying to get this thing plugged in
Oh, charger. Yeah.
quickly. But yeah, So what do you think about the state of music today? What are your
Oh,
thoughts about that, Chris?
it's good in some aspects, hilariously crappy in others.
Hilariously crappy in others.
Yeah.
That's an
Um,
interesting one.
yeah. From on my side, I've been now. It took me a while, but I have now started to put certain systems in place in terms of making sure all my metadata on my music is accounted for.
What's that?
Um, my metadata on my music, right? I
Oh,
think
I
you know
didn't
what
hear that. Go
metadata is.
again.
I don't know if the audience knows what metadata is.
Oh, maybe not. But
Okay.
I can discuss
For
it
music,
if you want.
yeah. For music, metadata is basically or when you play a song, the song has embedded in it who is the composer, what
Right.
year the song was made, who was the lyricist, and depending on how much metadata you put, how many musicians, what are the names of the musicians that were on that piece of music, that kind of thing. So when the music is played wherever on terrestrial television or radio or digitally via streaming, it can be easily tracked. So the monies and the royalties could go to the appropriate persons. That's what basically
Right. Right.
metadata is
Oh,
on
okay.
music.
Mhm.
Yeah?
Right. Right. Right.
And it'll be the same thing with film and animation. But the music has been played, but the music is basically called cues, CUE. So when it's played in a public forum, or even on a digital forum, like streaming, for example, if it's Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever, the appropriate monies will be going to the right people.
Right. Right.
So for me, I as a member, well, I still am a member of COT, which is the Corporate Organization of Trinidad and Tobago. I
Mm-hmm.
have recently now
What about
joined
BMI?
BMI. Yeah.
Okay.
So BMI is the PRO, yeah, in the United States. And I've now attached that now to my PNA account. And I'll soon be attaching everything from the MLC, which is they look at digital streams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And correctly digital streams monitoring. And so I'll be getting like that kind of revenue from
Right.
that.
Right. 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 Yeah, and that's a good point. A lot of people either don't know about that aspect of it,
Yeah,
or they know about it but they don't take it seriously.
yeah,
And it's very important. In fact, it's a great thing you mentioned metadata because a lot of people they put out the songs and they don't include the metadata. I know when you're publishing the song, it will ask you to fill in
that's
the metadata, and some people just kind of just click OK and move on, leave it blank. But that's interesting that you mention it because that does make it easier for them to track.
yeah. I see a question about can you remove metadata? You can, but why? Why? You know,
Right.
the reason why you attach metadata to music, I can't I don't know how it's done for the animation,
Yeah,
right?
I'm not
Or
sure either.
yeah, and because I know obviously metadata will be for things like the actual company that created the program, because
Mm.
that's how they make their revenues from certain royalties, that kind of thing. But the animated product, I don't know how it is for the visuals, how you'll do that. But for sound, definitely we have that in place. I know obviously, and you may know this too, that when an animation or film is broadcast, public broadcast, it does have royalties for the directors and these kind of
Yeah,
things,
and the
right?
writers and so like the people
Yeah,
above the
right.
line.
That's right. So, but I don't know how that is allocated in terms of the product.
Yeah,
But for
I mean,
music,
I know,
definitely is.
yeah, I know locally we have, so for music, we have, if I'm correct, we have, um, oh God, what's the name of that? It's not jam copy. Jam copy is for written work. So if you're a writer and you've written a commercial or
Yeah,
you've written, um, a film or something that's going to be aired, or broadcast or whatever, they are the ones who kind of, keep track of that and collect the royalties on your behalf. With
Right.
music, it is, I don't know why the name is escaped, is Jams, JAMMS.
Mm.
Jamaica Music, no, or is it JCAP? Jamaica Composers, and it might be both Jams and JCAP.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. Maybe somebody in the comment knows. But there is that. I know for written and for music,
Yeah.
something definitely exists. I don't know for like, actors if something like that exists.
I
I
think
don't know.
artists have that as well.
Mhm.
I but I don't know. Just like you, I don't know. Did that music go? I assume it goes through if they're unionized, which I assume it'd be good for them to be unionized.
Mhm.
Go through the union. Um,
Right, right.
yeah, but I don't know about Jamaican actors or Trinidad actors. I know that
Yeah,
at least in
I don't
Trinidad,
know about producers either. I'm not. I mean, I figure
yeah,
the
yeah.
producers probably handle that in contract, but I'm not sure.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it has some kind of um, process for that because everybody has to be protected, you know. Um, I know that at least for actors, well, at least in the States, it has things like SAG, which is Screen Actors Guild.
Right, right.
I
And
think
yeah,
in Trinidad and
WGA for
Tobago,
writers.
and I know things are getting serious in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of certain entities wanting to be unionized, to be taken
Mm,
seriously,
mm, mm.
um, especially in the acting. But I don't know the particularities of it. I just see
Yeah,
things happening, but since I'm not an actor, I can't give any specifics. But I've
right.
seen things. And I know, for example, it has a casting company that is very prevalent in Trinidad that does
Mm.
put out stuff. But I get it to my emails ever so often.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know for us, we don't have, as Ray is saying, we don't have unions for film text in Jamaica,
Mm.
right? None for actors. I know some actors recently were having some meetings and discussing starting a union. And there was, I think they came to the conclusion that it may not be the right time yet for a union. But one of the things they had definitely said was, should happen is they need to have some education programs,
Right.
whether it be workshops that they have, you know, um, every 2 months or every 3 months, where they educate, up and coming actors about contracts, about,
Yeah.
what their rights are, because a lot of them don't know. Like this was one of the things that came up in the discussion. A lot of actors don't know that if you are in a commercial, the contract is supposed to state that your image, you know, is supposed to be used for, say, a
That
year
particular
from that
medium. That
particular
right.
compensation. And if they're showing
Right.
it again after that year, there's supposed to be additional compensation.
That's right.
But either the contract doesn't state or it will say they can use your image in perpetuity,
Mhm.
which you can refuse. But a lot of actors don't know that, and they don't exercise their rights where
Yeah.
that's concerned. So an actor will be in a commercial front and center. They're not an extra in the background. And that commercial show for 10 years. And, all that actor made from it was like, the
Right.
equivalent of
They just
20 US.
glad to be in a commercial. I should have
Right.
same thing here. Same thing here. My dream, um, at least for musicians, and I actually spoke to one yesterday. If Gospel Life and this film comes through, this thing comes through, I'll just start hiring musicians who I know, not
Mm,
because I know them, they'll be hired, but because they play, I see them play live, and I know what they can do, so I hire them for this particular purpose. But I
right.
asked this particular musician if he's a member of BMI, and he said he kind of thinks he is because he thinks he kind of signed it up 10 years ago, blah, blah, blah. But like, dude, sort that out. Because the direction I want to take film, at least film composers, right,
Right.
is
Mm,
to have a bevy of musicians who I can rely on to give me certain feels. This is thing like Hans Zimmer does, and what of a few of the other composers do, right? And it's back to relationships again. I know these people, but I don't want to hire them just because I know them, right? And it's back to the same thing we were talking about before with directors. People coming to you because they're a musician or animator and say, I'm looking for a job, give me a job. It does not work like that at all in the real world. It's always the story, always the director's vision. I've been fired and turned down for a few jobs already because, and I think I did actually put that up on social media, the rejection letters, obviously without the name of the director, blah, 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 right? But you get rejected not because you became a a-hole on the set or whatever, but because the music and the field did not fit the film. So they chose something else, right? It's no hard feelings. It's business.
It's business.
So it's the same thing with musicians. But my dream now is to have that kind of relationship with musicians where they know that aspect of the business, meaning, and even I know I'm still learning about it, so I'm not 100% there yet in terms of that particular aspect of the business, where you could hire musicians, and from the film that's being showed, they get a percentage because they were part of it. And that means obviously they were not the composer of the film because I'm the composer. They were not the lyricist, whatever, but since they were part of the creative process, right? In creating the feel of that scene or that film, they obviously have to get part of the spoils of the royalties, right? But it's not how much. If it's on a point system, like what they do in a quote-unquote regular music album, right? Or something else. So I'm still investigating that, and then to apply that here in Trinidad and Tobago, and also that in the Caribbean.
Right. Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Boy, I'm sure we could go on all day with this thing.
I just thought that Ray Edwards says depends on the contract that you sign, which is true, but also what contract, because I signing a contract as a composer is one thing, but being a composer, I'm the head of department. I'm an HOD, right? So usually I'll play my own stuff or do stuff computerized out of the box. But if I'm hiring musicians, right, that's a different thing altogether. It's not like I'm hiring musicians for my own album, which is a different thing because, of course, the point system, so on and so forth. But you're hiring them to be part of a process that is not really mine, because I'm also hired, right, from the director and the producer. They hire me to do it. So it's a different dynamic. Yeah.
I've been in that situation before.
The animator, because obviously, I mean, it's one thing for you to animate everything yourself, but if you're hiring some junior animators, unless it's a work for hire, it has to fall under some other business relationship.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did have a situation where I got an international project and I had to hire someone else. So I had the contract between me and that client, and then I had to have a separate contract between me and the person I was hiring, especially because the contract between me and the client had certain things in there that you weren't supposed to do and blah blah blah. So I had to make sure that the person working for me also knows you can't do these things. You can't talk about this, until this is out. You can't whatever. You can't publish what you drew for this thing, whatever the case is. So yeah, very, 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 very key. But Navid, I am gonna wrap this up. We've been going.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. Before you go, while you're talking, I had it on my laptop here. I took a couple of screenshots. I want to put these screenshots up on social media and tell people about this wonderful conversation we're having, and to look out for it very soon. That's okay?
Fine. Yeah, man. And what I will do is, I'm gonna I'm gonna basically grab the video. I'll put it up on my YouTube, and I'll convert the audio and put it on my podcast as well. And I'll fling up some snippets on Instagram so people can watch it if they missed it. It was a really, really good conversation. We covered quite
Yeah,
a lot.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
I,
Always a pleasure.
I now see now people start to join. Oh my God!
Yeah,
But we're now
yeah,
finishing
yeah.
the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll leave the entire video up for a little while on Instagram. But
Yeah.
after a while, once I've downloaded it, I'm gonna take it down and I'm gonna just cut some snippets and
Yeah.
put on Instagram because nobody wants to watch this 1 hour and a half thing on Instagram. Maybe watch on YouTube.
You would be surprised some composers might, because I saw some of the people join that are not from the Caribbean. I saw the names going on, and I know them.
Yeah, I do see some names that are not from the Caribbean. And yeah, Ray says,
Well,
thank you very much,
yeah,
gentlemen, for the invite. Welcome,
much
Ray.
blessings. Eh?
All right.
And we'll talk about it because, as you know, we have some stuff coming up. You know, you and I. So they will be much surprised and happy with the stuff that we'll be putting out in this year 2023.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, man.
Thanks again.
No problem. You take care.
All right. Yeah,
Bye-bye.
Bye. Trying to remember how to end it.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking to. I'm looking to figure out how to do it. I think it's actually right if you're using a Android.
Yeah. All right.